So to our first subject then, and the EU has been warned that labelling natural gas as a green investment would miss emissions reduction targets. But considering the widespread use of coal, responsible for providing more than a third of global electricity, is gas an important transition fuel? So Ella, to you first of all, and look at the UK in particular, we do need a transition fuel, don't we, as we scale up our renewables to meet demand. And gas really is a lot better than coal. In fact, it says here natural gas emits almost 50% less CO2 than coal. What do you think?
Well, I mean, yes, it's undeniable that it is less bad than oil and gas, oil and coal even, but the fact remains that it is a fossil fuel. And if we want to meet our 1.5-degree warming targets, then we absolutely have to leave almost all fossil fuels remaining in the ground. So actually investing in natural gas into the future is actually more of a distraction. I think personally, the investment would be better placed actually rolling out and deploying renewable technologies, investing in smart demand management and battery storage technology.
Stanley, do you think that's right? I mean, if you look at Europe, for example, there are still some countries that are quite heavily dependent on coal. Gas has got to be an improvement, hasn't it? Should we see it as a transition, energy source?
Yeah, I think we should. I've got a lot of time for clientele. I think they've done some great work. And on this particular occasion, I think you probably do need to see gas as having a transitional role. The crucial thing, of course, is to get out of coal as quickly as you can, not just in Britain, but world over. But in this transitional period, I think there is a case for continuing to use natural gas. Of course, we actually ought to do things as well as the classic renewables, wind, wave, and so on and so forth. I personally, I think, would like to see a new push on the nuclear side as well.
Ella, a quick thought on that?
For me, nuclear would have been a good transitional option if we'd done it 30 years ago. By the time, all these nuclear plants would be up and running, hypothetical ones, of course, we would have missed our targets already. So I think it's a little bit of a red herring to assume that nuclear could play a role.
Yeah, I think Ella, I think there are new technologies out there, are there not? New, smaller, more effective nuclear technologies, things which could be brought online quickly.
Yeah, potentially. I think it would have to be much more kind of distributed generation, which is the sort of thing we see with solar and small micro scale kind of heat and power. Yeah.
And what about cost? We've had Kwasi Kwarteng, the business secretary, today, Stanley, saying that given the wholesale, this volatility, extraordinary volatility in the wholesale gas market, he's saying that renewables will protect us from that in the future. Is he right? Will bills come down in the future when we're reliant on renewables?
Yes, I think he is right about that. It is a question of having this great push for renewals, but there's no way you can have as a whole, unless you get the colossal development on the battery front, you're bound to still need a base load. That is the reality, and I suspect that base load has to come either from gas or from nuclear.
Well, yes, and if it was nuclear, Ella, wouldn't that make it expensive? I mean, there's huge costs involved with building nuclear power plants.
Well, we have 13% now nuclear.
Okay, yes, and Ella, go on.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's going to be costly, and we know that things like solar PV are actually one of the most cost-effective form of energy. So personally, I think we should be investing much more heavily in a variety of different technologies, and that gives you protection from the kind of intermittency side of things, as well as providing a more reliable kind of base load, as Stanley was mentioning.
Well, it's a big topic at the moment.
Very quickly.
Yeah, go on, Stanley.
Very quickly on the battery point, I think that we are in a stage where things like lithium may suddenly become much more easily available and deployable, and we may see a revolution in battery technology such that we will be giving back the renewables, maybe giving back to storage. You see cars at night, they may give back extra energy back into the system. There may be revolutionary changes here on the renewable front.